Well, hello everybody and welcome to the New Adventures series.
Welcome everybody. This is the New Adventures series with the star here, Dean Kevin from the UK, and he's sharing his experiences for us as a witness to what's really going on in the world and really even the bigger picture. So his experiences are very real, and it's an opportunity for everybody to become more aware through them as we relate to them as best we can. Jeremy and I'm Dean Bell. Jeremy is here from Modesto, California, and we'll be commenting and giving alternate viewpoints about the experiences that Kevin will be sharing. So welcome, Kevin and Jeremy. It's all yours, Kevin.
In this real side experience, I would be in the company of Lindsay, my sister, and we seemed to be going through a dank, swampy realm and fighting all these various bugs and creatures. In the next scene, there was a reporter on the television revealing to the world the presence of these bugs we had previously been fighting. So maybe a future view at the possibility of a worldwide broadcasting of the existence of reptilians that quite possibly these bugs and creatures represented. The scene would switch, and I found myself in my street and saw some twinkly lights in the sky. The lights grew in size until I could see they were attached to a spaceship. It looked like a flying wing and was evidently having some difficulty. It seemed out of control. I had to leap aside as it crashed nearly on top of me. The occupants emerged. They were unscathed. They were very fine-looking, blonde-haired people with pointed ears, like elves, one male and two female. I would dialogue with them and got into a conversation about the ears, the real guides, and the new you song. They would tell me how they knew all about the new presentation and Duane Hepner. Then the street was suddenly filled with all kinds of various alien species, and they were assisting these three blonde aliens with their craft, intermingling and conversing with each other as they did so, and they all seemed to know about the new presentation also. Another brief scene would follow, where I would find myself in another location, in a hotel, and the sky was filled with spacecraft of all types and descriptions, saucer designs, and every shape of craft imaginable. The scene would switch again, and I was in the company of a new friend called Pierce, and Duane, and a few other new friends. I suggest it was the main galactic group, and we were sharing our experiences and such. And then we suddenly were in connection with a female alien of high ranking and standing, a very influential character then. She was prepared to assist Duane and the galactic situation and the planet Earth, but she required convincing. She needed to be convinced of the prudence of being a part of it. And then I had the impression of connecting with every new friend on the planet Earth simultaneously, and we would sing the new you song in unison. This seemed to convince this alien of the merits of lending assistance. It was as though she felt the pure vibration of the combined new you singing, and so she agreed.
Kind of shows me that how the what we're doing here in the physical corresponds to the real side, what we call the real side, and people are paying attention to what we're doing here in the physical on the other side, you could say. I remember Kelsey, when I first got into this, Kelsey just had finished her book. And she had this experience where it was like on the real side, where it was a giant, it was something like, you may remember it better, Kevin, or not, but it was some giant book, like stories high, and there was an audience. It was like a stadium, I think, but everybody was clapping, and they were just acknowledging her for writing her book, which is about her experiences leading up to meeting Duane and the new presentation. And a lot of her real side experiences were in the book too. So what we're doing here is being seen all through creation. And like you said, this is alien, female alien that was possibly going to help us. She needed convincing, and your experience again confirms that we're all over the place, and we're pure and sincere, and we're doing something that makes sense and of a benefit for everybody. So that's neat. Jeremy, do you have anything to comment on the experience? Anything to share?
Yeah, little something to say. When Kevin was mentioning in the beginning that the little bugs could represent reptilians and how the news was announcing them, do you think that is something the news will actually do? Is what they use the term full disclosure, basically announcing that the aliens exist, which is silly. Of course they exist, or they're real, but do you think that is something that will take place?
Well, everything the controllers do is about controls, and so if they feel it's prudent in some way to release the information about reptilians, then they will do so if it's to their advantage. But there do seem to be a lot of factions with the various control systems that aren't exactly aligned with the same objective and agenda. They all seem to have varying different ideas about how they want to go about controlling humanity and maintain the control of humanity. And indeed, there are great swathes of reptilians and who are actually also waking up and stepping up and becoming part of the new presentation, who are assisting Duane and the guides on the real side. Because since the Orion hierarchy, the Orion royalty has been chucked into the Phantom Zone, the Queen of Orion, a lot of the reptilian control system and hierarchy is in a little disarray, and as I said, a lot of them now, they are liberated from the controls from that royal control system. They are now in less danger, and so they're more likely to step up and assist, whereas before, obviously, to go against the dictates of their royal command would pretty much have them executed, because reptilians are a telepathic species, so evidently they would instantly know if there was any insurrection in the minds or intentions of any of their reptilian cohorts. And so many factors at play. There's so many different factions. They're all vying for control. All these individuals are basically bored and they want to control things and manipulate in their own way. And as I said, whether there is disclosure or not just depends on what has the overall control of the planet and the media systems, whether they decide it would be prudent to do so from their perspective. And who can say for certain whether if the reptilians may even release control of the planet and perhaps completely aligned with the guides and
Yeah, everybody wants the adventure, most people, I would say, in some sort of way. So the military, the cops, they want the action. We also like the adventure, but there's a way to do it that is for everybody, and that is actually, you can have more and more of it. It's an ongoing process, whereas this other process is a quick way to destruction and annihilation of creation. So there's ways to do things that make more sense. So that's why we're here, to give opportunities for people to wake up to something that they can do for themselves that is a benefit, rather than agreeing to the demise of the whole system and creation. Go ahead, Kevin.
in this real side experience, I had arranged to meet Pierce, another new friend and aware individual from the UK, and we were going to go to the cinema. It seems we were going to watch a new X-File movie. I remember remarking how it had a really poor, unimaginative title. I was to meet him in my town, and the movie was for 9 o'clock. It was evidently amidst this coronavirus business, as everyone was nervous of everyone else, keeping their distance from each other, etc. I was to meet Pierce, then we would go to another town. As Leighton Buzzard, the town I reside in on the physical, does have a cinema, but one that doesn't show the latest movies. Realizing I was running late, I would get on my phone to Pierce, and we agreed to leave it for today. But then, while I was on the phone, I was seized by some individuals and was kidnapped. I would view the scene where I had previously been captured from, and one of these characters picked up my discarded phone and was speaking with Pierce, telling him how he had the wrong number and things of this nature, while Pierce was asking what was going on, as Pierce had heard the scuffle, and me being cut off from his end. Finally, this individual deposited the phone down a storm drain. I was taken to this facility. Seemed to be a dark forces operation, as all who went here became robotized. They would place a sheet over your body, then this metallic grid, a kind of mesh, would be layered over it. It would burrow into the body and settle beneath the surface of the skin. This seemed to be the process. Pierce had managed to find my location, and he came to rescue me, but he got captured also, and was subjected to the same process. Somehow we managed to escape. How we did this, I did not see, but not before the process of robotization had begun. We both had the metallic mesh in our heads. We had escaped before the rest was applied. But while the metallic mesh remained, it would transform and convert the bone of our skulls into a metal also. Although the skin on the surface remained the same, this inner skull transformation wasn't then apparent from the outside. It did, however, have the effect of causing an unsightly swelling to the area of the head just below the upper jaw, which bulged considerably. We learned also that other individuals had been kidnapped and taken to this facility. One of them was Lila, who at the time was with the new presentation, and she had been not only robotized completely, but rendered genderless. We were now going to rescue her. Pierce and I began to make a portal that would allow us transportation to Lila's location, the facility where she was held. Somehow the portal failed, but we had a glimpse of a pastel orange-red skies, almost like an artist's depiction of a sky. The scene skipped again, and we had an additional objective. It was to rescue Pierce's son, who also had been kidnapped. Then the dream ended. This hinted at the possibility of the dark forces using the cover of the coronavirus to disappear who they might consider to be dissidents, new friends, and perhaps grab family members also for leverage and bargaining tools. All they need do is claim a person has the virus, and it may come a time where on the strength of that they can force them into supposed treatment facilities, maybe vaccinate them full of nanoparticles, and perhaps this is how people may become robotized. That was the end of that experience, and it was quite interesting as well, because at the time of that experience, Lila was still with the new presentation, and it was only, I think, a couple of months later that she would then, I think she went back to Ekankar or something, or whatever she did. She stepped back anyway.
She stepped back with Sandy and Claudie, and because she was talking to them quite a bit. Lila had a lot of experiences in the physical, where she was attacked or presented with reptilians coming in her bedroom and in her apartment. She would see them with the physical eyes, and she was questioning a lot about. She had a lot of questions, and she was very literal in terms of how she saw things, and that's what happens. This is a very vulnerable position we're in a way, and people take it for granted that it's safe here, but this is all about survival, and it's very dangerous here, and we have to pay attention to what's going on, keep alert, and it's not what people think. And again, this experience shows that it's you got to be on your toes all the time, because they will trap you, robotize you, mechanize you, do what they can to gain control in their last efforts to maintain control. But as it happens, we are here. We're helping, assisting people to really see what's going on, and this is all part of it. These experiences. Jeremy.
So so essentially you were getting a glimpse at what was to come with the whole you said Lila, I think, with her stepping back, you got a glimpse at that, or what was possible, right?
Yeah, so evidently, because I saw that on the real side, that was obviously what she was considering in that moment. It just, the decision to do so hadn't been finalized, and so it hadn't been solidified onto the physical level as yet. Because on the real side, we always see what people are deciding at that moment that we encounter them. and we also, so basically we're seeing the culmination of their decisions. For example, if you see somebody as a reptilian, they may not be a reptilian now, but based on the decisions they are making, we are seeing them as the culmination of where their decisions will take them, in that they will assume that body form as a result of their poor life choices and cause to affect decisions that have them assume what would be considered a sort of awareness step back from the human form. And so very often we will see, I mean, people will vacillate back and forth a lot anyway with their intent, and we will see indications of that vacillation back and forth as we encounter them on the real side. We will see their intent as it sort of flicks back and forth. But I suppose with Lila and other new friends, when they finally, if they do determine for certain that they want to walk away from the new presentation, we generally will see it on the real side first, and then it will become so on the physical. Because I would also see Sandy and Bob as well, just prior to when they departed, because I had a real side experience with them where I saw that Bob was basically hosting a radio show where he was down treading the new presentation, and Sandy was with him, so obviously standing with him in agreement. And this would be a month or so prior to when they departed the new presentation. Although I didn't actually say it at the time because I didn't feel it was prudent to do so, nevertheless, it does sort of show that when people are getting ready to leave the new presentation, you do often see it on the real side. And there was another individual as well, I won't name him, but he was also demonstrating this fluctuation of intent, and actually to the extent he was actually becoming very disruptive and interfering with some of our activities and missions, if you will, and assignments on the real side as it pertains to the wake up and assisting with the galactic situations and trying to offset the demise of the simulator by getting agreement, by giving people the opportunity to become more aware. And when I spoke to Duane about that, he knew. He would ask me who this individual was, and I would tell him, and he said yes, he knows, because he saw the individual doing this as well. But yeah, we will see people's intent on the real side, and we will see the decisions they are making prior to when they actually become an actuality on the physical level.
You know, Lila's like be 100 years old this October, so she was 90 when she came into this, and people get fossilized as they grow older. I'm 71. Fortunately, I see some of what's going on here. Jeremy, what, you're 18? You're just fresh.
Yeah, youngster.
You don't have all this baggage you're carrying like us oldsters, but we have lots of stuff we've gathered and collected and agreed to through all our experiences here, being here in this one particular lifetime. So we just gather these things, these attitudes that is very, for the old people, it's kind of hard to get through sometimes. So you're lucky to have this opportunity as a youth to come into this with less of that behind you. And Kevin, you're in between, so you're you're good too. But it's these attitudes that keep us back. You know, just one little attitude, like Duane says, can take you out. So I talk to Duane sometime. He tells me he's got a personal self too. He's got to watch, and he does every little thing that comes past him. Every little feeling, idea, thought. He looks at it, you know, inspects it. I mean, we have this all during our daily life. We have these things running past us, past our attention. So just pay attention to what you are accepting, agreeing to, and putting your attention on. And makes a difference when you're indifferent to it. You can still have everything you want, but be indifferent to the attachment that you place on it, because it'll give you more wiggle room to carry on, because this is an endurance test. In a way, it's this, how much stamina can you have, because it's an ongoing, endless becoming more aware. And that's what's so cool about it too, because every day is brand new. You never know what's going to come your way if you're open and you're willing to see it. Life will show you, and it's a brand new day every day. What life brings you.
In this real side experience, I would have the view of two individuals who had these tags on their ears, and there were these other individuals removing them. The individuals removing the tags were speaking with the ones having the tags removed, and it was as though, once the tags were removed, the previously tagged pair faded away and forgot everything they had been involved with. I had the impression the demonstration was of these two individuals listening to the guides, but at some point must have decided to walk away and return to their personal lives. The guides, then, were the ones removing these tags, as though, due to the decision of these two individuals, they were disconnecting from the true reality and their real awareness, no longer having the ears to hear the guides, as it were, and the guides were making adjustments to honour their decisions, to return to their personal lives. The two individuals seemed content enough with their choice, and of the opportunity they would forfeit. I didn't know who they were, only that they were male, and as they faded away and back into a creation, it was as though they were already forgetting all they had known and seen while with the guides. A kind of unconscious amnesia settling upon them. In the same experience, the same individuals, the ones I had the impression as being guides, brought forth a young girl. It seemed she was going to be instrumental in developments and the unfolding events that are to come, yet she did not realize this at that moment, that she would play such an important role. I would receive as impressions as I viewed this scene. Sometimes words are lost in translation, or I can't bring them back to the physical, so it's far better to read the impressions more so if able, then put the impressions into words, using the personal references. This girl was not human. She had almost a reptilian face, but really more fish-like, I would have said. Humanoid and flat a face, but with a scaled skin like a fish. I was receiving all kinds of information and views. There was something about how people on the earth were going to start exploding at some point, or disintegrating into dust. Some kind of effect of the 5G possibly, and it was females who would suffer this particular fate more so. Something about their biology that made them more susceptible to such an occurrence than males. Unfortunately, my flow of viewers was cut short and interrupted, as an entity then decided at that moment to trespass into my bedroom, and its distraction stole my focus, and a lot of the information I was receiving was lost. And that which I did recollect, I had to fumble for, and get fractions of it, as I have just recounted. The entity was a kind of insect-like, black and shadowy, reminding me a little of one of the aliens out of Ridley Scott's Alien films, but with a smaller head, and it had these huge tusks that wrapped around its face. It was able to paralyze me on my bed, as some of these entities can do, but I sung the New You song, and it was dispelled. The paralysis broke. There was also another wolf-like monstrosity in the bathroom that I had the impression of from where I lay. Their presence had fragmented my recollection of the experiences I had been having prior to them entering. There must have been some agreement there, somehow, that facilitated their invasions. But once again, the New You song was as effective as ever in repelling those individuals and creatures of ill intent.
He talked about the two people that had the tags on them, and they apparently left. The guides gave them a chance, but they left. And when we see people leaving, it's life keeps going on. And for these people to come back, it really takes a lot of effort. If they wanted to come back, they really have to prove themselves after they, in a way, once you get on this path or road or whatever you want to call it, this journey, it's you can't look back. And if you step off, it's really difficult to get back. Because I see that some of the people that I knew that left, and for them to catch up to what has been going on, it would be, they almost have to start all over again, even though they've been experienced and they've had experiences and they know the knowledge. It's very challenging, would be. So I'm going to give it to Jeremy here.
Speaking of the guides honoring their decision, so they will always honor your decision regardless of what it is, even if it's not the most beneficial, because you're always the decider, right?
Yes, that's pretty much how it is. They can't violate your free will, otherwise they represent then an imposition, and they will then have to deal with the effects of that. So they're not about to do something like that. So if it's the person's free will decision to do whatever they want, even if it makes no sense with the whole of life and is not beneficial for their real awareness, and guides will still honor their free will decisions, step back and let them be the effects of everything.
Yeah, for me, that's a biggie, because it really shows that we're always the decider. It doesn't matter what it is, we're always deciding something, deciding to agree to something, deciding to see more, whatever it is. It's really always up to us.
Yes, and the guides can't assist us in any way unless we agree to their assistance. Otherwise, they simply cannot enter our experience. Because with most people, they're so shut down and locked into the illusionary bubbles of their personal self that nothing of what is real, the life, or the real awareness, or the guides can get through. And I think Duane said on a few occasions, life, and the guides are always trying to find cracks in the agreements or the construction of the consciousness in which they can shine the light of the is through and feature and try and bestow some information or hints through to the individual to perhaps get them to want to decide to see more. They always want the real guides walk through creation, as it were, unseen on the real side generally, because as I said, they simply cannot feature in experiences where there isn't agreement which allows them to be in the experiences. And so they do have to answer that. So again, as you say, it basically all comes down to us as being the deciders of everything in our experience, and it's all based on agreement. And the guides also are rather restricted in that sense, in that they can't help an individual unless they want to help themselves. So yeah.
You know, I came from the Eckankar Corporation, and the reason I was in there for 40 years is because of the novels that Paul Twitchell wrote, which were East of Danger, Talons of Time, Three Masks of Gaba, Tiger's Fang. These are all novels that he wrote, adventure novels that really sparked my interest to keep looking at it and having experiences with it, with the corporation, as well as my own experiences, real side experiences. And this is what attracted me here with the new presentation, is the adventure. Like, I'm in it for the adventure, where some people are in it for, they have spiritual paths which are looking at love or truth or wisdom. They want to find themselves. For me, it's always been the adventure part. It's attractive. And that's what this is really. It's so much of that and more. You can't even express it. And in terms of leaving, well, I have no place to go. There's no place to go. You know, I mean, you could say personal self, but that's nothing. I mean, there's nothing there. So I don't really have a choice, I feel. I mean, yes, you do, but in a way, there's no, what's the option? Going back to drudgery, boring life of drama, whatever. Whereas this is like always new, always fresh and pure, and you have the support of life and the other new friends and the real guides, and it's just so much more real that there's no comparison, really. So it's just when I hear people leaving, or I don't know, I'm not sure what they see, what the attraction is, but it must be something that's, you know, their tap lines, their attachments, emotional mainly attachments that keep them sucked back into the creation area. But there's so much more to be had, and this is a great opportunity for everybody. It's not going to be here forever. I mean, it's like Duane says, there's a window here, and who knows what the future will bring here.
Yeah, I remember what Duane said, where he talked about with the I had it in the forefront of my mind, just lost it. That with the personal self, it's, you know, what is there? That's not even you, this personal self, but people have their ideas about it and they chase these personal self things, but there's, like Val said, there's nothing there except more illusion, and everything that you did obviously didn't work because you're right back here trying to figure it out.
Well, Paul once said, I don't know if it's valid or not now, but he said there's three of us. There's the person that we project to others. There's the person that people think we are, and then there's the person that we think we are. But, you know, our real awareness is what it is, but we have this personal side of ourselves that well, Duane says there's two of us, the personal self and the real self, but Paul kind of in a humorous way said, you know, it's who we think we are, who others think we are, and who we want to be, you know, who we want to project. So it's interesting. Creation is very interesting, the way it is and the way it's set up. Duane says it's like it's been pulled out of the isness, kind of something pulled out of it, so we can use it as a comparison to what, you know, life isn't.
I was about to say, I always felt that when it comes to the stepping up, becoming more aware, wanting to decide to finally become, you know, that which we already are, or recognise the free beings like that we already are in the real universe is now. I think when the individual makes that decision, they really have got to have reached a point where they've exhausted everything that they can possibly want to do in creation. I think I termed it once in one of my radio shows, they've reached experiential saturation, where which they've experienced every possible facet and nuance of experience there can possibly be. They've been the bad guys, the good guys, everything in between, and they're so very bored of everything in creation. There's nothing there for them anymore, and they sort of feel that not even necessarily their real awareness is that which is deciding to finally want to recognise the isness that it is, but it's I think even in the personal self, even when the awareness within the personal self feels that as well, they're just very tired and bored and sick of creation, and so it's almost the personal self is almost ready for it as well. And I think Duane said on several occasions that that is why there is a lot of agreement to the destruction of the simulators overall. It's almost as though the awareness that is locked in the personal selves are just so tired and sick of it, they just want it to be all over on a subconscious level. Obviously, such individuals are unaware of their real awareness as an alternative option, as they see creation then as the only place where they can their awareness can be. But yeah.
I was in self-realization fellowship when I was in like high school, early college years. And this is a organization begun by Paramahansa Yogananda, and he had his teachers, which was Sri Yukasthar. And I think it was, before them was Lahiri Mahashai. And his teacher might have been, was it? Oh, I forget his name. Babaji. I think it was Babaji that was ready to initiate Lahiri Mahashai into the next level. And he said, well, there's still something within your personal self, basically, that you need to experience. So he wanted a big castle, big, like, you know, with jewels and gold all around and things like that. So he had Lahiri Mahashai experience this, but before he could move on, because he needed to do that. And like you say, Kevin, it's like we need to, you know, we don't have to, but most people do want the experience and to experience things, being the bad guy, good guy, whatever. So we need to go through this to see what we don't need anymore and saturate ourselves if that's the case. But it's I think I feel that way too. It's like there's nothing, there's thrills that be nice to have, you know, nice to have a nice massage once in a while or something, you know, and a good meal. But basically everything's been experienced that needs to be for me. So I feel that being aware and now is the true adventure. And there's so much to that. There's so much to that, how that all works. It's not just, oh, I have the idea to be more aware, but there's a process to it. And that's where the real guides come in to help you through that. Get to know, be familiar with your own process so you know how it works for you. And once you're on that wheel or that journey, then you're kind of set in a way. You kind of routined into becoming, you know how it works for you, and then you can just keep going with it. Then it's just a matter of endurance and keeping up with being alert, paying attention, not getting sidetracked. In a way, that's kind of easy but in a way, you know, like I listened to your experiences, Kevin, and the reptilian attacks and all that, and what Duane's gone through. In a way, it's very much of a hardship too, in the physical sense. But in the other sense, it's always the benefits outweigh it. You could say, if you want to put it literally, the benefits always outweigh it. It's too much to lose. It's too many. It's too good to lose. You know, to lose the awareness, and you never really lose it. But it's an ongoing, endless journey to become more and more, and it's just I can't explain it really.
Yeah, but just going to say very briefly, that's why the controllers do what they do, because they're bored. Duane has always said that. That's why they go around seeking control of everybody, subjugating everybody to their will. That's their sensation, their thrill, because they're more bored than anybody, and so that's why a lot of them are coming around now as well, because they're completely fed up with their situation. Because with most individuals, they are subjugating those who are completely locked into their personal selves, those who have agreed to the very limiting, crazy ideas of the reptilians. They can't see. They can't see as far as the reptilians can in regards to the fact that the reptilians can see what's going on the real side, whereas generally most unconscious individuals who are agreeing to their control, they can't see beyond these illusionary control bubbles, and so they will be completely oblivious of all the sort of darkness that's enveloping creation, which is a symptom of a simulator in demise. But the reptilians can see that, and so that's why a lot of them are panicking a little bit and coming on board, because they're going to be caught up in the effects of what they have created and got everybody and every individual in the simulation to agree to. Before this real side experience began, for almost the entire duration of one night, my mattress was rising and falling as I lay upon it. It seemed almost that it was breathing. This was experienced from a position where I was in various states, from being completely awake to being between sleep and wakefulness. I didn't want to sleep, for I wanted to experience what was going to happen, as this was very much a physical level occurrence. But just that, the mattress seemingly breathing, with me being lifted and lowered on top of it as it did so. Then it ceased, and I went to sleep. I was on the real side now with a group, and we saw a large building up ahead. We chose to explore it. It turned out to be a trap, something set up to glean our attentions and agreement to what was effectively a dark force constructed idea. For as we entered, we were instantly transformed into monsters. It reminded me a little of that real side experience where I entered my sister's subconscious and turned into a monster, a demonstration of being a product of our environment, and how a real guide removed the taint and allowed my return, once I was purified of the monster affliction. So maybe here a similar demonstration, but on this monster transformation, The group and I immediately turned to leave, recognizing consciously the effect of this decision and that it wasn't exactly beneficial. But then there were guardians at the door, Dark Force agents who attempted to bar our way, trying to maintain our agreement, in other words, through force. For we had seen through the ruse with our real awareness, and now they attempted to perpetuate it through physical means. But we simply pushed through these wretched individuals and exited the building. We instantly returned to our usual body types, shaking off the monster forms. So it was an agreement trap by the dark forces, a temporary agreement, as we were only momentarily duped, as we realized and recognized the restricting nature of the agreement and made the decision to sever it. Then there was an attempt to force us into agreement through physical means, but we still had the awareness to deal with the situation, and off we would go, untainted and untaplined.
What do you see with that, Jeremy?
Well, I thought it was interesting when you entered into you said Lindsay's subconscious arena and you were a monster. I have a question. Would that be your projection of how it is you are, or is that a projection of hers because you entered into her subconscious that you took on this monstrous form?
Yeah, this was a reference to a real side experience I had about 2 or 3 years ago, so I'm trying to remember. And we were just conversing about various things. I believe I was trying to speak to her about the new presentation and the references of these to see if she'd be interested. And she had a passing interest, but there was obviously agreement there which allowed me to then enter her personal self house. So there was agreement initially with, for my presence, and she seemed vaguely receptive to what I was talking about. But then she would point to one of the walls of the interior of the house, and there would be a curious window, and she didn't know what it was, even though it was her personal self house. So obviously everything in it was of her construction, because if this is her personal self house, this is her recreated consciousness on the real side, and the only reason why she wouldn't know of a feature of it was, but obviously she was unconscious and aware of that particular feature. And as she said, and as she would say to me, you know, what's that window? And I said, oh, I don't know, I should go and explore. So I went flying through the window, and I would enter a very sort of swampy realm, what seemed to be a very swampy environment, and it was very boggy underfoot, and my movements are very hampered and belaboured. And then I would decide there wasn't much to see here, so I returned round and wanted to return back through the window, when I suddenly found myself being transformed into a monster. And then a guide, a real guide, would appear, would appear in the scene as well. And my real awareness read him as being a real guide. They have this sort of undeniable isness standing presence about them, which distinguishes them from anybody else, and also any dark force individuals who would attempt to replicate them. And he would bar my way and say that I couldn't return back into the back through the window until he had removed the taint. And so I would stop and allow him to do so. And then I say this monstrous form that I'd taken on as a result of being in this environment was removed, because I'd agreed to allow the guide to assist me in that. And again, everything's based on agreement, so he couldn't have assisted me unless I'd given him free will permission, as it were. And then I was able to turn through the window. And when I share this experience, Duane told me that what had happened was you had entered an unconscious or subconscious part of Lindsay's created consciousness, and that's why she didn't really know what the window was that led to it, because she was unconscious, unaware of it. And I went exploring into it, and he said the demonstration was basically everybody, regardless of where everybody will always be the product of their environment. Yes, that was basically the demonstration. He said it was a demonstration of it, because you had entered Lindsay's unconscious because of the nature of its construction, how it was. It demonstrated how you had instantly become the effects of it. In other words, a sort of product of that environment, and you couldn't then return into what would be the conscious part of Lindsay's personal self, because then she would be made aware of something she wasn't ready to face, because she wasn't in a position of deciding to want to confront and face the personal self to that extent. So it'd be too much for her at that point, and so the guide then therefore removed the taint before I returned through the window, and I think that's how it went. Yeah,
it shows how awareness supersedes everything, and it's in everything. It's in the trees, it's in our subconscious, it's all through everything, all through creation, how awareness works and operates. So if we become more aware, we're just have that we're everything everywhere idea, instead of restricted and limited to certain positions like the bodies and things. So it's really a cool the isness is really cool. I mean, it's just what can you say about it? The way it is, it's always new now, and it's just beyond consideration, and it becomes more aware as we become more aware. So that's how we contribute.
In this real side experience, I was with a group, and they had an incompleted time machine. They were intergalactic bounty hunters also. They required that I provide them the missing component that would allow their time machine to be operational. I would do so and join them on their escapades. We were a group of 3 and wore a sci-fi type space outfit. I was also in the form of an android of some kind. Maybe we were going back and tapline removing, locating all those agreements, exposing them and eradicating them, just like you would with a bounty hunting target, and as was the demonstration here, and the time machine reference was indicating the age of these old outdated taplines, far back into the Akashic records of my created consciousness I would possibly go. And the missing component I provided was agreement that this take place. So these other 2 individuals were probably real guides, and setting up the tapline removing experience, but only with my agreement, as it must be my choice to do so. And I was robotic, to indicate the rigid nature of these taplines. Maybe then they were old patterns and routines, repetitive, stubborn taplines, the ones that tend to always be there, lifetime to lifetime, as we cling on to the routines of ideas and attachments that we do.
I like the analysis that you do, that all the like down to the fact that you were bionic or like a cyborg type of deal that could show you the restrictive nature of these things, essentially having you robotized. I mean, certain patterns and such we carry in our subconscious from past lifetimes, and that the time machine representing that altogether, but ultimately it was still your agreement. So I thought that was pretty concise description.
Yeah, our body types always reflect overall the culmination of all our cause to effect decisions. And Duane has often said that's the reason why people will be going into more robotized bodies as a result, and why that generally tends to be quite a common body type throughout the simulator when a simulator is getting very old and into its demise, because by that time agreements have become so compounded to restriction and control that this is reflected through the body types, and so that is then expressed as coming into these more robotized body forms.
Well, thank you, Kevin. That's great to hear your experiences, and we can become more aware through them as we objectively see what you've gone through. It teaches us certain things that we can do and not do to make better decisions for ourselves. So thank you for that. Thank you, Jeremy, for being here too. Any last words before we sing the New You, which is our way to get through this matrix, find our way through these tap lines and such. We sing New You, but would you like to say anything else, Jeremy or Kevin?
I'll throw this in there. Check with REBISAR and Paul on the real side. Ask them what is real now. They know what's up. They know what's new.
Use that resource. Yeah, it's a resource we have. Very real.
Yeah, all I will say just to finish up is to reiterate that we are always the deciders of everything in our experience. Nothing can feature in our experience unless there is agreement that allows it to be so. So that was the only thing I will just reiterate. So that's quite an important thing to bear in mind.
Thank you. New you. Kevin?
New you.
Jeremy?
New you.
Thank you, fellas. See you next week.
See you next time.
Bye.
Okay then, goodbye everybody.